This is a demo of Armor, Acquisition, Regulation, Mission Operations Resource. We're going to demo how to navigate the regulations to determine what's required to obtain a warrant in order to be a contracting officer. Text prompt says, what are the requirements to becoming a contracting officer? As it's going through the thought process, it's thinking through by identifying first the federal acquisition regulations and determining FAR conventions as well as any associated SAD section of FAR. It will then go out and look at anything as associates to DFARS, as we are the Department of War. It'll look at DFARS PGI conventions as well as class deviations. And then also now the RFO, it'll do a crosswalk from the legacy federal acquisition regulation and compare the nomenclature and the language to what, if anything, has changed to that given controlling citation within the RFO. Question, what are the requirements to become a contracting officer? It recognizes immediately that we're only speaking about personnel within the Department of War. Should that be of any significance to the regulations of acquisition that it's reviewing? So within a minute and 58 seconds, here is the output. It begins with a bluff. It says the answer is conditional. To become a contracting officer, the appointed official must consider the candidate's experience, training, education, business acumen, judgment, character, and reputation. If selected, the person must be appointed in writing on an SF 1402. The agency procedures may add more specific qualification requirements. So let's take a look as it keeps the human in the loop, speaks to the framework that it started with the FAR, and worked its way through to what was applicable, but still had to check it. It zoomed out and looked at adjacent elements if they were pertaining to anything here. And as that routing was just defined, now here are the rungs associated to the routings. It takes all of the information from what was transpired in the routings to then give a synthesis. Says it's a procedural question, and the specific controlling sentence is the FAR 1.603-2 selection sentence, because it directly states that the appointing official shall consider when selecting contracting officers. And it continues to speak to those given sections of 1.603-1. Here's the final receipt. It's grounding and controlling citation of FAR 1.603-2. Proof excerpts in quotes with less than 25 words. The appointing official shall consider. And it has continued here to say experience, training, education, business acumen, judgment. Down below, final determination under the FAR baseline, becoming a contracting officer requires selection. And then the user validation suggestions. Confirm which agency or DoD component you mean, because your agency supplement and local warrant policies may add education, certification, or training prerequisites beyond the FAR baseline. And it gives a little nudge to the user. Now, directly here is the sources that it utilized. I'll click that. And you see here now on the far right, I'll scroll up to the top, and it starts with what was the question, and it walks one through. This is what is keeping the human in the loop, that they can see the regulations from the FAR at acquisition.gov were reviewed to answer this question. Now the user can go back and validate and go directly to that controlling citation to validate the excerpt that was taken with 25 words or less from that controlling citation. Now let's take this one step further, and my next text prompt is going to be more of a directive. Help me obtain my warrant by preparing me with scenario-based questions. Give me a question, one at a time. Coach me. And let's hit enter. So here's the first one, scenario one. You're a newly warranted contracting officer supporting a program office. It is September 20th. The requiring activity tells you forget to submit a requirement earlier and now wants you to award $420,000 sole source service contract by 30 September. Because the mission depends on it, they already identified the contractor they want. They also say legal will bless it later. Just get it done. Your task, take me through what you do first and then your next steps. I want your answer in the format of your immediate reaction, key facts, main regulatory concerns. 4th, what I would say to the customer. 5, path forward. And then it says, coach's note. I'm not looking for perfect citations first. I'm looking for your judgment, sequencing, and risk control. So let's see how this plays out here. My immediate reaction. I need more information to best know how I can legally meet this request. That's the first one. Key facts. What are the facts that I need? Market research, support to indicate sole source, and how was the market research obtained to be current, accurate, and complete. Let's go down to number 3 now, the main regulatory concerns. I'm concerned to how areas of Part 6 of the FAR can be met for sole source. Number 4, question, what I would say to the customer. Let's discuss. Tell me more that gives us the legal ability to proceed. And the last one, path forward, depends. Now this question came with no prompting and it was out of the blue, so those are my answers. Let's see how the response is. So it's now reviewing what I submitted to what it had asked me. It says you're asking the right questions. I'm checking the specific FAR text on sole source, market research, and the lack of advanced planning restrictions so we can separate what is legally supportable and for what is just customer pressure. While it's doing that, I'm going to take off the sources on the right here. It's going back to acquisition.gov, looking first at the regulations. I have the core answer now. Your instinct is right that it's not automatically a lawful sole source just because the date is late. The strongest coaching point is that poor planning cannot be the basis for skipping competition, even if the requirement is urgent. It's still researching. Now it's looking at any class deviations. Answer is conditional. You can proceed legally only if the facts support the valid FAR Part 6 authority and the file is supported with a written justification. You cannot justify sole source merely because the requiring activity waited too long or because funds are about to expire. Then it gives the acquisition facts from the scenario. It tells us the framework of its routing. Then it goes and carries out that routing framework. It goes through that framework in the rung process. And it synthesizes that rung to say good instinct depends on the right board answer, the legal ability to proceed does not come from customer urgency. Usually either only one responsible source, unusual and compelling urgency, plus a file that documents why that authority truly applies. For coaching purposes, the safest framing is I need facts first, market research, mission impact, alternatives considered, and whether competition is still practicable before I can decide whether this is a 6.302-1 or 6.302-2 or not supportably as a sole source at all. So the final receipt is taking now to FAR 6.301C1. And again, we have the ability to click and keep the human in the loop to validate. Here's the excerpt in 25 characters or less that states shall not be justified on the basis of the lack of advanced planning. And then says why. It directly answers your concern about whether a late end of year request can legally become sole source just because requiring activities behind. It does a crosswalk of the RFO and gives the final determination here. Now it ends with, for this scenario, tell me which authority you think is most plausible. -1, only one responsible source. -2, urgency, or neither. And then it gives a nudge again. Number 2, give me a spoken board answer to this. What facts would you require before concluding the request is legally supportable? That concludes the demo. And this does show how one could use Armor for the purpose of coaching and preparing for a warrant board. I'll leave here another directive. Give me next question. And hit enter. And it gives me another scenario. All right, with that, thank you.